If you reached this video, this means you have noticed a very weird behavior in padding when applying a padding top. So this will be an advanced explanation for the block and inline living element. But do you remember the difference between them? Yeah. So the difference between them is the block elements takes the entire width of the page, like flowing from top to bottom, as we mentioned before. But the inline elements, they only takes as much as width as needed. It depends on their content. Let's prove that from the editor. So here I am having an inline element, as you can see. And you can see it only takes the width as it's needed based on its content. And if we added more span or more inline element, for example, high, you can see it getting placed after that element. This proves that, okay, this proves that if when we add more elements, it's getting added to the next elements. It proves that the span element takes only enough space as it's needed, and we already know that, nothing new. But in terms of the block elements, as you can see, it takes the entire width of the screen by default. So if we add more block element, okay, this is block element 1, for example here, so it's getting adding new element. And if getting adding more span element, as we can see, it's getting adding aligned after the last span element. So what is the new thing that we have here? Okay, I want you guys now to visualize this any web page as a list of lines, okay, as it's seen here. So this is just a visualization. Any web page, it actually consists of a virtual lines, okay? Okay, so what is the new? So in case of the block elements, okay, each block element have a line, or each block element on the line. Like as I mentioned, the block elements, okay, on the entire line or have the entire line. This is why when we have another block element, or if we want to insert a new element after that, it will be added in the next line. Okay, I think we already know that, but this is a different view. But what is the case in terms of the inline elements? Okay, since we mentioned everything in the page is just lines. The case in the inline elements that they are sharing the same line. Again, so here we have a line, as we know, it's a web page, but it's different from the block element that each element are sharing the same line, and these just take a small portion on of this line. Like we have here, for example, the inline element, because it has more content, it take a little bit larger portion than the other elements. And if we increase, as you can see here, it takes more and more. So the moral of this is that the inline elements are sharing the same line, but the block elements are they own the lines. Okay, since I said the block elements on the element on the line, let's demonstrate a very important thing. Do you guys remember that before we were just talking about the width of the page, the width of the content, but we didn't say anything about the height? Yes, we didn't see that, but why do we need to do that? Okay, here I go to the div element, okay, and I will increase the height of each element. So for example, let's make it 40, or let's make it 60 pixel. Let's put some margin so you can guys notice it. Just forget about that for now. And if you can see here, I instruct the div element to have more height, 60 pixel, okay? Yeah, it's okay, but why it's important? Just remember that. Since the block element own or control the line, we can as well control the height of the line. So the line have a width and height. The width by default that in the block element they will take the entire width. But what about the height? We can control that in the block elements. We can give them more height or, for example, less height. Okay, okay. You have to remember they can do that because they own the entire line. It's like an apartment. When you are the owner, you can do anything with your apartment, right? But what is the case in the inline elements? Unfortunately, because they are sharing the same line, they don't own the same line, they can't control this the vertical space or the height. Let's try to prove that. If we go to the span element, okay, and give them a height of 100 pixels, you can see there is no effect. Why is that? Because they don't control that. Okay, but why it's not allowed? It's maybe you can ask this question. Because if we allow this, if the browser allow this to the inline elements, each element can have different height. So maybe this element say I want the height to be like that, but this element just be the height to be like this, and eventually they will break the flow of the element. Okay, if you didn't understand that, it's okay. I want you to imagine from different perspective. If we go to the Google document, okay, I want you to imagine every word has an inline element. And as you can see, hi everyone, I am Omar. Okay, and as you can see, when I add more words, it's getting adding after get it added after that. Okay, now imagine if we give them the inline element to control the height. So this word can be down, and this word can be up, and this word can be. So it will be very messy. The page will be broken down. So the flow will be very messy. That's why the browser cannot allow them. Okay, this is mean. Okay, this mean what? This is mean. Let's remove the height here. Remove the height here. The margin bottom here. If we go to the span and try to give margin bottom, for example, 30 pixel, nothing happened. It didn't push down or so let's make about the padding for now. Okay. We, what we can see is the padding is applied visually, but it did not apply what by pushing them down. So it's very important thing, guys. You have to remember this. The padding bottom just applied visually, but nothing happened. It didn't push the elements down. Like if we can apply that again in the div element, padding bottom, for example, 40 pixel, we can see there is more space that happened. But in case of the inline element, this space doesn't affect the other element because the browser will not respect that. Even if we try to apply margin, maybe you take it, maybe not, but it's okay. If we apply margin here, nothing happened. But if we try to apply it here, 30 pixel, you can see each block element have a margin and it pushing down the other element. And you know why. I hope this guy is clear.